In today's video, we're going to take a look at 5 different types of street photography. Because within street photography, there are different subgenres. It's not just street photography as a whole. Just like jazz, there's smooth jazz, there's other types of jazz. As I go through the genres, I'll be putting up 9 examples of each as I go through them. So don't worry, you'll have something more pretty than me to look at the entire time. And out of those 9 examples, I shot all of these images. So I'll be picking on no one else but myself. And if you happen to like these images, go ahead and hit that sub button for more videos like this in the future, or go ahead and check out my Instagram, all the links and everything down below. I'll also be adding a little bonus tip for every subgenre, so just in case you want to go out and try it yourself, or improve within that subgenre, yeah, just something a little extra for you. And of course, let me know in the comments which one are you, or which one would you like to be. Starting off with our first genre, I'm gonna stick to the basics and just go through at least my interpretation of traditional street photography. Now, in my own definition of traditional street photography, I like to stay mostly walking around. And by that I mean I don't pause too much in one spot and just sort of wait for someone to walk into frame or overly compose my images. I like to think that as I'm walking around, I'm creating moments that are not recreatable and that you just had to be there in that moment to capture it. It is my favorite form of street photography. I don't feel like I'm overly locked into any particular genre while I'm walking around doing it. I am usually shooting a mixture of close-ups and range shots, although usually close-up. I do sort of subscribe to the quote that if your image is not interesting enough, that you're probably not close enough. For me, I think it's the most honest and candid version of street photography, and to me, finding the truth or my version of the truth is really what got me into street photography. I do think that the story of a street photograph is more important than getting a really pretty image. I think getting a pretty image is sort of the cherry on top. I think it's possible to shoot for the story and end up with a really beautiful image. And it's not really possible vice versa. If you're really shooting for a beautiful image, I don't think that the story happens naturally. And that kind of leads me into my first tip here about traditional street photography. And that's just to make stories and not photographs. And a story doesn't necessarily have to be in your image. Sometimes, as you know, as a street photographer, we're not always successful in that. Some of the sort of worst photographs that I ever took on the street have the greatest stories for me personally. So go out, make stories for yourself, talk to people, make memorable images for yourself, if not for everybody else. I think if you're able to get something where the story is conveyed through the image and other people are able to relate to it because it's a great image, I think that's an absolute bonus. But you want to be enjoying your street photography. So go out, connect with the people, talk to the people, understand your city, and enjoy shooting street photography. Next up, I'd like to talk about my least favorite form of street photography, just get the negative stuff out the way. And that's what I like to call the Instagram street photographer, or maybe the camper, as a lot of the time what it pertains to is just someone sitting in place, setting up camp and waiting for someone to walk through the frame. I think the rise in this type of street photography really came through Instagram. I think part of that is the viewing format. Obviously, when we look on Instagram, we're seeing images at a very small aspect ratio. So things like simplicity and strong compositions and even strong colors really has a higher effect when you're looking at something so small. My problem with it is that it feels very cheap and easy, just sort of setting up, composing something nicely, and then just waiting for someone to walk through the frame. You may as well bring a tripod, and this is street photography, not nature photography. For me, there's no interaction at all, no story. Often it's shot on longer lenses and things like shallow depth of field, these kind of cheap tricks that maybe to a non-photographer come across as pretty exciting. And I really think that the best part about street photography is the interaction, conveying and documenting humanity and the people and the streets and the city. And I really feel like, for the most part, this really detaches itself from all of that. I also feel like it's very trend heavy. It relies on trends a lot because obviously that's what gets clicks. And like I say, I think this type of street photography is very driven by Instagram. And so additionally, I feel like it's very void of creativity. And that would lead me into my tip about this kind of street photography. If you do like this type of street photography and it's your thing, then fair enough. I can't really judge you for that. But I would encourage you to not just settle for the trend. Try to take the trend and either improve on it or use your creative knowledge from another trend that you've also used and combine those to create something a little more unique. Additionally, I have to encourage, go out, shoot something a little closer and interact with someone at least once a day to start to push yourself into a realm where maybe you're not that comfortable but I think you're going to feel the excitement of it and yeah, maybe just improve as a photographer as a whole. The next genre I would like to get into is another favorite of mine and an absolute classic, and that is the street portrait. The street portrait, well, the name basically speaks for itself. You go out there. Traditionally, you would ask for permission, and that's what makes it street portraiture and separate, in some people's view of the definition, separate from street photography. Again, I think the best part of this art form is the interaction. You get to speak with people for a minute and of course, kind of read the room. You get the sense of who maybe wants to chat and who doesn't. Maybe someone has got 20 seconds to spare for you. Maybe someone's got 2 minutes. So maybe you can also use that time, just ask them how their day is going, ask them what their name is, introduce yourself, even pass off a business card if you're concerned about building a business around you. Otherwise, I think you can end up with some really fantastic images. There's so many people out there. I think when you really start to look at doing street portraiture, you actually start to realize how all these people you might have considered in the past are like quote unquote boring actually become very interesting to you, especially when you get home and start to look at the images and you can see these people, you can see the humanity in them, and you can see how different people react behind the camera, how some people want to pose, some people are very uncertain, some people know exactly what they want and how they want to present themselves. The street portrait interaction becomes very different as an individual, as an experience as there are people. And as far as tips go for you, something that I wish I had started doing a little bit earlier is actually just to kind of work the scene. If you've got the time with the people, as I say, not everybody has the time, but if you get the feeling that someone's okay with giving you a few minutes of their time, maybe ask them to turn a different direction, even ask them, hey, do you mind stepping over the road for a second? We can do it over here if there's a nice spot there, or you want to be able to change the lighting. Working outside, especially in midday sun and things like that, can be kind of difficult. So if you're able to manipulate it a little bit by moving around your subject or moving yourself around, it can be the big difference between turning a good image into a great image. Now, the next genre I would like to get into, I don't have a great name for. For now, I've been calling it the Absurdist photographer. If you have a better name for it, please do let me know in the comments. But basically, this photographer is kind of just looking for something funny. I personally really enjoy this kind of photography to look at. I think, everybody's looking for something to make them a little happier these days. And not all photography needs to be super serious. And as much as I do enjoy it, I think it's a very difficult thing to do because I truly think that the opportunities are just a lot more rare. We're looking for things like juxtaposition and comedy and a sense of confusion. And as I say, there's a sort of rare occurrences. And I think if you're not specifically looking for that thing as you're going out to shoot, if you're going out with more of a mind to shoot very serious street photography or engage with people, I think these instances are just something that's a lot easier to miss. I don't have too much to say about this genre really, because as I say, it's quite simple. It's just going out and looking for something funny. What is funny to you is going to differ to what's funny to somebody else, but I think you get the point. I don't really know how you would make these occurrences sort of happen more. So the only tip I can really give you is be out there in a playful mind. Maybe you can go head out some days where you're not thinking about shooting this very serious form of street photography and just go out there and see the world and ask yourself what makes this funny and be in a playful mind. And I think the more you start to view the world around you in that way, of course, these occurrences are probably going to pop out a little bit more and you're also going to be ready to shoot them. Now, this last genre I want to talk about, I also don't have a great name for it, or maybe I do, as I call it the Saul Leiter style. And if you have an interest in photography and you don't know who Saul Leiter is, you probably should. He unfortunately passed away in 2013, but made such an impact on photography, and especially street photography, that his style still is affecting our photography today. And that's pretty awesome. He's pretty well known for using things like windows to shoot through, especially foggy or rainy ones, often using structures to frame his images, and quite a lot of the time also his subjects had their personal details like their faces obscured by something. Used a lot of abstract compositions, a lot of negative space. In this particular image, something like this, using a structure to frame the image, obscuring the subject, and also using a lot of this negative space, usually in the lower half of the image, sometimes up to 80% of the image. It's been very successful on Instagram, and I think a lot of that is also due to its simplicity sometimes, its heavy use of color, and also for the viewer, it's very non-aggressive. As I say, the people are often not the forefront of the image, so you don't necessarily have to engage with that side of things. And then, yeah, simple, strong compositions, lots of color, and umbrellas. Lots and lots of umbrellas, which Instagram seems to love. And my final tip for you, if you wanted to be a Saul Leiter style photographer, is to buy his books. Buy the books, study them. If you want to be like him, go out and get that knowledge. And well, at the end of the day, it's not like you have to go out and copy his work. You can incorporate some of those things that you're able to learn through his work and add them to your own photography. So there you have it, 5 styles of street photography. Do you think I missed one? If you do, and you have something in your mind that you can think of, leave it down in the comments box below. Or if you don't know, just comment your favorite photo from this video. And again, I shot all of these images, so even the ones I was critical on towards the beginning, if you like them, go ahead and check the Instagram, hit the sub button, and as always, until next time, happy creating. Peace.